Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Welcome to our session this afternoon on how to improve your business profile. As Chris mentioned, this is a opportunity for you to ask questions. So if any of you got any questions as I go through the presentation, just pop your questions in the chat and I'll try and answer as many questions as possible. And I encourage you to ask questions about anything really about your small business, because I think this is the opportunity to be able to ask questions. Just before we get going, let me just speak to you a little bit about masterminds. Masterminds are an idea that's been around for a long time. And what it really is about business owners meeting and discussing different challenges they're going through in their businesses. And it's a way to get advice, guidance, and some direction from your peers. And I encourage you to, as a business owner, to create these groups, because they're really, really good for you. They're an opportunity for you to meet other business owners. They're an opportunity for you to learn from other business owners. And they really work well. You know, in the early days of both my businesses, I spent a lot of time with other business owners. And the reason I did this is because some of the challenges you go through as a business owner, other people haven't been through. So there's not always simple answers to some of these unique challenges. You know, you can't like just pick up a book or Google and find the solutions to some of the challenges you have. And some of these mastermind groups can be very, very structured, you know. So I remember one group specifically that I worked with for quite a while, about 2 years. And what we did is we'd read business books, and then every week we'd get together and we'd discuss a different chapter of a book that we're reading and how it applied to our business. And I found that really interesting. And I think the key part here is to learn from other business owners. You've got to understand that webinars are good, seminars are good, training programs, conferences are good, all of these things are good. But I think that one-on-one mentorship and advice is really valuable. For those of you that haven't met me before, my name is Andrew Patricio, and I've always been a business owner. But for the last 25 or so years, I've been educating, training, trying to inspire and coaching business owners on how to build a successful business. And when you're working with so many business owners, you learn so many things from them, you know, different ways that they go about doing things. And I think everybody's story is quite different. But one of my most successful business owners was somebody that I worked with 25 years ago when I first started in this business. And her objective was really simple. She wanted to be really successful. And I think when you meet a business owner like this, and I sometimes do, I must be honest, not very often, but I sometimes do, and you meet these business owners and you realize this person has potential. And I remember her and I having this discussion about, you know, how could she become the best in her industry? And one of the things that we discussed in a lot of detail and really worked for her was improving her profile in the community so that people would recognize her. So when she'd go to a Chamber of Commerce or a Board of Trade event, people would recognize her. If she went to a conference or a trade show and things like that. And it was really, really effective. And the reasoning for this is really quite simple. I think as business owners, we need to understand, especially in the early stages of our business, and when I say the early stages, it's not a short amount of time, but in the first 10 years of our business, I think our personal brand is often stronger than our business brand. I know that was the case for me in this business when I first started BizLaunch 20 years ago. It was really about my personality more than the business. And that changes over time. In my previous business was the same thing. And one of the things you've got to realize, which I think is really, really important as a business owner, is your reputation follows you. You know, so whatever you're doing, you've got to think about this as a business owner. Again, you're going to try and do as many things right as possible, but sometimes you're going to mess up, and that's okay. But I think the key thing here is if you can create a profile for yourself where people recognize you, that's really, really helpful. Because the advantage you got is if people recognize you, they trust you more. If they trust you more, they'll buy your stuff. If they buy your stuff, they will probably refer you. And that's the way I want you to think about it, is this is an opportunity to use your personal brand for your business. And for some of us, I don't think it's the most comfortable thing. I know for myself, I'm not crazy about, being in the spotlight. But I did realize early on in this business specifically, whether I liked it or not, it was good for my business. People didn't know what my business name was. They didn't really care, let's be honest, what my business name was. And so I was the brand. If they went to one of my seminars or they went to one of my training programs, or if I was speaking at a conference, they were dealing with Andrew Patricio. And I think this is really important that we understand this. So how do we improve that brand, or how do we create a brand? Because remember what I said to you earlier on, that this brand is going to follow you. A lot of us, including myself, have been in various different businesses. So over the 30 years, I've probably started, now I think it's my 7th business. And each time I've used the benefit of the previous business, the benefit of my experience, the benefit of my knowledge to be able to, start or improve or at least launch the new business. But one of the things that are really, really important, I think, is to first define what is your personal brand. And these are things that are really, really important for, I think, longevity in your business, for your mission statement, for your vision statement, all of those things. So you've got to decide, what is your brand? And think of people like, I know this is sometimes a little bit far-fetched for some of us, but if you think of people like Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs was this great presenter, but even the way he dressed, the way he presented, all of these things were really a tech guy type of thing that was really smart. That was the image he tried and project. If we think of any other bit like Elon Musk, for example, he sometimes gets a bit confused. One minute you'll see him wearing a tie, and then you'll be seeing him on podcasts smoking weed, and then he's dancing at launches, so he gets a little bit confused. But I think one of the things we've got to decide is, what image do we want to project? Do we want to project this professional, image, or do we want to be a little bit more casual? Do we want to be a little bit more laid back? All of these things influence what we're going to be doing. And I think you make a decision about this. I know for myself specifically, I always had almost this two sides of me. This one business side where, for a lot of my time, I used to wear suits and I used to wear ties and look like this really formal presenter type guy. And then in my personal life, I was just laid back and casual. And I think over the years, I've become more laid back and casual. But I think it's really, really important that you decide that. Even as a business, think of in your business, do you want to be known as somebody that is, let's use the word boring, for example, like the banks. If you look at some of the banks, you'll go into their branches and they want you to trust them. So they'll do things that build trust. For example, the colors they use, the furniture, even the way their employees dress, all that type of stuff, really important. Whereas other businesses are a little bit more playful. If you've ever been to any of the Disney parks, you'll see they're more playful, more entertainment, more playful, all that type of thing. So I think you've got to decide for yourself, what is your personal brand? When people see you, what image do you want to project? Do you want to project success? Do you want to project techie type person? Do you want to project playfulness? Do you want to project whatever it is? I don't think it matters, but I think you've got to decide as a business owner, what do you want to do? And I think, I'm speaking specifically about the way you dress and things like now. And for some of you might say, well, it's not that important. Whereas for some people, it is actually important. I know, for example, I don't wear ties anymore, but for a lot of my career, if I spoke at a big conference and it was, a bunch of academics there and things like that, I always made sure that I had a suit and a tie. Now I've got rid of all my suits and ties. But the point was, that was the image I want to project. And some people might say, well, it's not really you. And I agree. It's part of the whole marketing is that you've got to project this image. The other thing I think is very, very important is that you determine, what are your business goals and what are your values. And I think values are a really, really important thing. As a business owner, you got to make sure that you have certain values. I know some very, very successful business owners that I've worked with over the years that have they've created almost like these principles. We don't do business in those industries, or we don't want to get involved in that area of business, whatever. And you've got to decide for yourself as a business owner, what do you do, what don't you do? And I think it's very, very important that you come up with this, almost like, what are your rules? What are your values? What are your principles? All of those things are going to influence. But I think if you really want to become a successful business owner in a community, I think you can become high profile. That's what you can do. You can decide that this is what I'm going to do. And I think this is a decision that we make as business owners. And I can think of examples now. I remember one guy, specifically a young guy, he was in the tech business. And whenever you'd see him, he'd be very well presented. He'd always have a pencil on his ear, and it was really, really interesting. Or I've seen people, for example, over the years have specific colors that they use, that stand out more from other people. And some of you might know people like this. And these are decisions that they make to stand out from the crowd. I'm not that type of person, just so you know, but I admire people that do this because then they get noticed. People notice them, they see them at different events, they start on, knowing a little bit about them. And these are the type of things you want to do. So the first thing you want to decide is, what image do I want to project? Do I want to be this staid, professional, wear a suit and tie and have my shoes always well polished? Or do I want to be this laid back? Or do I want to be in the middle of the road? Those are the decisions we need to make in business. Because when you're in business, it's almost like you coming onto the stage. And that's the way I want you to think about it, is, you're presenting your brand, you're presenting your image, and you're presenting your business. And just remember what I said earlier on, this eventually is not that important. But in the first 10 years of your business, I think it's really, really important. Actually, I get really surprised when I speak to business owners that have been in a business a year or two, and they'll say things like, we have a strong brand. And I think to myself, really? You have a strong brand? You're doing $50,000 a year, you sell a few products, and you have a strong brand? I don't think most small businesses in the early stages have a strong brand. Often, people are doing business because they trust us. So most of our business early on, in the case of BizLaunch, was because people had met me, they trusted me, they weren't really cared about what my business was. Nowadays, I think more so, people come to us because they've heard about what BizLaunch does, the different projects we worked on and things like that. And I want you to understand that all of these things are under your control. They are decisions that you make as a business owner. And they're very, very important decisions. Let me give you something that's really, really important. So I got a message earlier on today. I was in Portugal a few weeks ago, and I was running a workshop, and somebody that was attending this workshop wanted to communicate with me and wants me to help her develop a strategy to grow a business. So one of the first things I did was to go and check her profile online. And it was really interesting because she's an architect and a designer, and actually a very, very good architect and designer. And I went on to her social media, because that's typically what happens, is when you post somebody's name into Google, the first thing that comes up is usually their LinkedIn profile, and then maybe their Facebook page, Instagram, and in her case, Pinterest. And it was really interesting because her online presence didn't really give me enough information about it. You know, things like, I can see she started a Pinterest page that she stopped posting content in 2020. I saw her on LinkedIn that didn't have updated information. And then I saw her on Instagram. And one of the things we've got to understand as business owners is that if we want to create a high profile, which I recommend you do, is if you want to create a high profile, what you want to do is you want to update your online presence. And it's really, really important. I can imagine some of you not wanting to be found online. Maybe that's one of your things. But I really think if you want to build a business, you have no option, because people will hear about you. There'll be at an event. It doesn't matter what your business is, whether you run a bakery, whether you run a restaurant, whether you run a service business, people will speak about you. And then often people like me will want to Google you just to find out a little bit about you. And I think it's very, very important. The other thing that you must make sure that is well written is your About Us page or About Me page, or whatever it is. You've got to make sure that you give people enough information. And, you know, things like your LinkedIn account, actually mine needs to be updated. I was looking at it last week and I thought, you know, you could update this information. And the truth is that, you know, LinkedIn is quite a powerful way to connect with people. If I'm looking for business to business, I'm going to be on LinkedIn. And I think every business owner needs to be on LinkedIn. Doesn't matter what we do, whether we run a restaurant, a bakery, whatever it is, we should be on LinkedIn, because it's a great place to connect with people, and more importantly, to build a community. So as a business owner, your LinkedIn profile should have a good photograph of yourself, which I recommend you take professional photographs, get a photographer, take a professional photograph, put that on there, and then just make sure that your profile is well written, especially if you're looking for new projects, especially if you're looking to grow your network and, you know, become a business owner over time. Because the one thing I've realized, you know, as a business owner, I started off by selling roasted peanuts many years ago. But over the years, I've gone into different industries. I was in retail, I'm in real estate, I'm in all these different type of industries that I've been in. And the reality is that people will often, you know, connect with you based on your previous business. So let's say, for example, I currently own a bakery, but maybe in the future, I will be in the real estate business, you know. So I've got to make sure that I keep building this community around me, building these contacts that I can use. So it's really, really important that you update your social media profiles, and you've got to choose. You know, I think if you're serious and you only want to do business to business, probably LinkedIn would be the one you'd be on. But if you want to be fun and all that type of stuff, I think there's lots of potential on things like Twitter. There's lots of potential things like Instagram. I mean, you could even go as far as TikTok. I mean, I can't imagine myself being on TikTok unless I was sharing content with potential customers. But I think it's really, really important that we look the part on our social profiles and we update them, we keep the information up to date and all those type of things. Because this is typically what happens. You go to a networking event or you attend a conference or, you know, one of those type of things, you meet somebody and they're just curious about you. They'll come back to the office and they'll check you out online. I know I do that. And also make sure that your profiles are up to date, well written, and visually appealing. So let's go back to LinkedIn. You know, there's a couple of things you can do on LinkedIn. Firstly, your photograph. Then you've got the opportunity for that background, that you can put a background on there. And then you can write your description really well. All of those things are things that you can work on. Again, depending on the nature of your business, if you're in a service business selling B2B, maybe you'd spend more time than if you were a baker baking hot cross buns. So it really depends on the nature of your business, what you need to be doing. But keeping your social profiles up to date, I think, is a really good strategy, because a lot of times I will search for people, and I'm sure other people do it too, because they reach out. And I think it's a really good opportunity. The other thing that we have to do, and I don't think we have an option, and this is one of the things that really concern me a little bit about these last 3 years. You know, the last 3 or 4 years, actually 3 years now, we've got used to a lot of us working remotely, a lot of us not interacting with people, all of these things. And this is not good for business owners. I want you to understand that a lot of times our business will come from the relationships that we develop over time. We go to an event, we go to a conference, we go to a trade show, and we meet people that help us grow our businesses. And it doesn't matter what business you're in, and I want you to understand this. It doesn't matter what business you're in. What you want to do is you want to build a community of people around you. You want to build a community of people around you. So if you're an entrepreneur, you want to build a community of entrepreneurs around you. And it's very, very important that every single one of us, doesn't matter what our businesses are, every single one of us attend networking events where you go to a place, there are other business owners there or potential customers there. We hang out there and people say, what do you do? And you say, I help small business owners build successful businesses. And then people will say, how? And then I'll tell them how to do it. Because I want you to understand, most of our business, most of our really good relationships, most of our contacts in our database come from going to events. So as a business owner, you should never stop doing this. And now I think is a big opportunity. Actually, tomorrow morning, I've been going to quite a few events this year and half of last year, but still I find there's not too many events going on. Or maybe let me rephrase that, not as many as they were before COVID. But I think it's compulsory for us to attend these things because this is how we build relationships. I think of anybody that I have a good relationship with is usually I met them somewhere. I met them at a trade show, I met them at a conference, I met them at a social event for business owners, and most of my business comes from them. So I can't stop networking. I've got to keep doing it. And I think now's an opportunity to start doing it again. So I'm, like I said, I'm going to an event tomorrow, which I'm really looking forward to. Again, some of us, myself specifically, aren't used to how do we greet people now? Do we shake hands? Do we fist bump? Do we whatever? You know, it's very, very confusing. It even gets more confusing for those of you that, like me, that work in Portugal. Then it's even more confusing because, you know, people there, when you greet a woman in business, they usually kiss them. And now with COVID, I've got no idea what to do. So I'm the uncomfortable person walking around, not knowing what to do and hoping that somebody takes a lead because I don't want to be taking the lead. But attending networking events and conferences, I think, are very, very important. Actually, these are two different things. Firstly, networking events. This is something you've got to attend. Conferences are also a massive opportunity. I want you to understand. So as a business owner, I've been in different fields. I was a retailer. The main fields have been retailing, seminar presenting and public speaking, and then consulting. And even in retailing, I remember in 1993, which sounds like millions of years ago, but anyway, but in 1993, going to a supermarket conference in Chicago. And some of the contacts, some of the things that I learned there, some of the connections that I made were absolutely brilliant. And since that time, like I said earlier on, I've been training business owners for the last 25 or so years. But since that time, I've recommended to all of my business owners that on a regular basis, you should go to a conference. And I'm going to encourage you to do the same thing, is that if there's a conference for your industry specifically, I encourage you to go. Some of them are going to be good and some of them not going to be so good. But the point is, you've got to go to find out which ones are good or not. So if you're in the bakery business, there are bakery conferences. If you're in the dried fruit and nuts business, there are dried fruit and nuts conferences. Or if you're like me, in economic development, there's lots of events globally we can go to. And what we do is we go to these places, and people like us hang around at those places. So if I go to a bakery conference, for example, there are other people in similar businesses to me, and we learn from each other. We build relationships, and they're very, very good. So when you're stuck as a business owner, you can reach out to one of these people and say, listen, I'm trying to find this type of mixer. Do you know anybody that knows it? And these are the type of things you want to be doing. And I think it's a massive opportunity. So if you haven't been, which most of us haven't been for the last 3 years, networking and building relationships, I encourage you to now start doing it. I encourage you to do it. And even for those of you that are introverts like me, there's a couple of basic things we can do. Firstly, we've got to identify which are the right events to go to. And the only way we can do that is by going to events. And then secondly, just learn how to introduce yourself and learn how to ask questions. So whenever you go to events, always ask people questions. Ask them, what do you do? Where are you from? All that type of stuff. Because here's the lesson I've learned. When you go to events and you let people speak about their business, they'll be more interested. Because what happens often, and this, you'll go to an event and you say to somebody, what do you do? And then they say, well, I'm an accountant, or I'm a whatever, small business trainer, or I'm a baker, or a candlestick maker, whatever it is. And they just want to speak about their business. The reality is that people like people that allow them to speak is the way I want you to think. But you've got to build these relationships. We've got to rebuild these relationships. I can think of a couple of examples. I mean, we work on some really large projects. We've got a big project coming up now with one of the credit card companies. And that business didn't come through us directly. It came through a relationship that I have with somebody that referred me to somebody else that now we're doing this work for. And this original person that referred me, I met them at a conference, a big international conference. So I want you to understand these are some of the opportunities and these are some of the relationships. And sometimes you don't get business from these events, but it's not all about business. It's about the connections and the relationships you build. And as a business owner, you want to regularly go to networking events in your region. You regularly want to go to industry conferences to improve your profile. So when people see you, they say, oh, it's that guy that owns the local bakery or the local candlestick maker or the local restaurant or the local accounting services or the local spa or whatever it is. So we've got to think about that. The other big opportunity, and I say this to all business owners, is we've got to understand that most of us that are on this webinar have knowledge and experience from our industry. Doesn't matter what you do, you have knowledge and experience in your industry. So one of the ways you can improve your profile is to share your knowledge. And don't be afraid to do this. Don't be afraid to do this. It opens up lots of opportunities. I mean, I don't really want to go there, but if you think of some of these celebrities that you'll see on TV, they started off as, I don't know, in the construction business or in the food business, whatever it is. They started sharing their knowledge and experience, and now they are celebrities in their own right. And maybe that's not what you want to become. You don't want to become a celebrity. But what you want to do is to share your knowledge. And again, this also positions you as an expert. So if you share your knowledge regularly, people start thinking, okay, she's got special knowledge, she's got special experience, and she's sharing and she's sharing it with the community. And I encourage you to do the same thing. I've often said to business owners, teach other people, because the more you teach, the more you learn. And it's a great opportunity for your business. So if you're in a bakery business, run little sessions where you teach people how to bake better. If you run a restaurant, teach people how to make certain plates. If you run whatever, and you want to share your knowledge and your experience. And these are the type of things that improve your profile among your community. The other thing you want to do is you want to share your knowledge and experience in different ways. For example, you may decide to blog. Maybe that's an opportunity. You decide, you know what, I want to create a profile for myself, so I'm going to blog regularly. I'm going to blog about random things that are taking place in my business. And I think this is a really important thing that you understand. For us that are in the industry, a lot of these things are boring. But for other people, I mean, I had a friend of mine's daughter here the other day, and she came into my office and she said, "Oh, this is your office?" I said, "Yes." And she says, "I see you've got lights in your office." I said, "Yes." And she said, "Do you create videos here?" I said, "Yes, that's what I do. That's my business." Because, you know, even a lot of these kids have got no idea what business people are in. And I said, we create online content, we create webinars and things like that. And she was saying to me, you know, I want to start a YouTube channel. And I was saying to her, you know, it's really not difficult to do. And if you need the lights, I've got the lights, I've got camera equipment, I've got all that recording equipment if you want. But the key thing, I want you to understand is that when you teach, whether it's by blogging, whether it's by hosting regular webinars, if you're in the service business, for example, if you're an accountant, this time of the year, you want to run webinars on taxes, you know, some tax tips for small business. That's what you should be doing. And the idea here is, again, to position yourself as an expert. And don't worry about the number of people showing up, because the advantage of, for example, running a webinar is you've got content that you can repurpose. And in the early stages of running webinars, you're always concerned about the numbers. But after a while, you start ignoring numbers. I do anyway, because I realize that the important part of a webinar is, firstly, that you've got content you can repurpose. And some people will sign up and attend, and some people won't attend for different reasons, especially small business owners. But the point is that creating that content gives you stuff that you can then share on social media or different platforms. The other big opportunity, I think, if you want to improve your business profile, is to speak at events. I think this is a big, big opportunity. And I've used this many, many times over the years. But let's not talk about the last 25 years, because it's obvious this is my business. I speak regularly. This is one of the things I can do. But even when I was a retailer, you know, you'd get these opportunities. Local schools would contact you and say, you know, we're looking for somebody to come and speak about this or come and speak about that or whatever it is, and you offer your services. And the reason you do this is because it improves your profile in your community. And all of you can do this. You know, you can speak at your local Chamber of Commerce, you can speak at your local small business center, you can speak at your local schools, local colleges. All of these things are an opportunity. And you've got to understand the value of this. I'll give you another example, which I've given to a lot of business owners over the years, is to teach a course. Now, obviously, this is not for all of you, but for some of you, especially if you're selling a service, this could be a big opportunity. And I've known of a couple of examples. One specifically is somebody that's an architect. She teaches a local university course, which is brilliant, because then it gives her access to all these students that are really talented. So when she's recruiting, she's got that opportunity. Another person that I know that was also on my program was a naturopathic doctor. She did exactly the same thing. And it opened up opportunities for her to find some of the best interns and some of the best employees. But the key thing here is, whether you like it or not, when you say to somebody, I teach a course at the local university or the local college, they almost assume that you must be smart. Whether you're smart or not doesn't matter, but they assume you must be smart. Actually, that's originally where my business started. So many years ago, I was at Toastmasters, which I recommend all small business owners join. Whenever I meet business owners that want to improve their profile and things, I always say to them, go to Toastmasters. And at Toastmasters, or Toastmasters, like I say, is it gives you the opportunity to learn how to present. So when you're in front of people, you learn how to present. And many business owners over the years have told me that was one of the best things they did, was go to Toastmasters. And what happens at Toastmasters is you learn how to become a better presenter. Oh, I was telling you the story. So you learn how to become a better presenter. So I was at Toastmasters one day presenting on small business in economic development. This is years ago, long before I got involved in economic development. At the time, I was a retailer, and somebody saw me presenting and then asked me to speak at a local university. And that's how I got involved in this business. A crazy thing that because I was helping a local university to do a presentation on small business, this started a new business opportunity for me. And I'm not saying this is something that you should be doing going into the speaking business, but what I'm telling you is that it's a very, very good opportunity to improve your profile. So Cindy that I was speaking about earlier on, there was one of the most successful people I've had on this program. That is exactly what she did. I said to her, go to Toastmasters, go and learn how to become a good presenter, and then at every opportunity, speak publicly. And it was very, very good for her. So I'm encouraging you to share your knowledge, share your recipes, share the way you do things. And it positions you as an expert, firstly. And secondly, it's good for your profile because people start assuming that you're an expert. The other thing you want to do, and I think this is very, very important, is to participate in community events. Get involved in your community. Get involved in your BIA. Get involved in your local chamber of commerce. Get involved in your local board of trade. All of these things are good opportunities. And the most important thing I think about these community events is it builds goodwill in your community, but also the contacts you make. It's really, really important. Actually, I just thought of something. My brother is in the real estate business, and recently he went to a conference in Orlando. And it was really interesting. He wasn't even really that interested in the conference because the nature of his business is quite different. But there was this real estate conference, and he went there. And he said to me it was one of the best conferences he ever went to. And I said, why? He said, because there were just a few of us, that were in the same industry. And I got to meet people there at the conference that typically I would never get the opportunity to meet anywhere else. And I want you to understand the same thing happens in community events, is that if you need a local contact, it's really about who you know. Doesn't matter where you go, anywhere in the world. I'm here to tell you that if you know somebody that knows somebody, this could really benefit your business. And so if you're new to business, or you're new to an area, or even if you've been in an area for a long time, or you've been in business for a long time, one of the things you want to do is to get involved in your community, because that's how people, the more people see you, the more they trust you. It's all this whole community thing that's really important. I remember when we were in retail years ago, we used to try and get involved in our community for everything. We used to have events. If they were trying to raise money, we'd encourage them to raise it outside our store. We'd have Saturday morning markets for the local kids and all these type of things. And it was really, really good for our business. And I want you to understand this, is that you want to do things that are good for your community, which in turn will be really good for your business. And that's what you want to think about. And I encourage you to be creative, see what other people are doing in other communities, in other areas, and then start doing things. I mean, even with your local BIA, I think it is such a big, big opportunity to create things that are interesting in your community, to create a bit of buzz, to create a bit of interest in your community. And I've seen it done in many towns and cities across Ontario, and some of them do it really well, but lots of them do it really, really badly. I mean, I've seen markets that have so much potential that are not too done. Let's just see. Somebody says, Karen says, if your market is saturated, let me just move this question across it. If your market is saturated with so many writers, for example, how do you attract people and get them to trust you fast so they don't keep on searching for others writers. I'm a certified resume writer of 29 years, and it's still a struggle. So this is what I would do, Karen, if I was a certified resume writer. I would regularly run events on how to write a great resume. That's what I would do. And I would do them for free. I would do them online. I would do them offline. Because let me tell you a secret, but don't tell anybody this, is even when you run a seminar on how to write a great resume and you teach people everything you know, they're not going to do it themselves. They're still going to ask you to do it. So you've got to understand this. And this has happened many times to me over the years. I've had people that are website designers, and I always say to them, run a webinar or a seminar or a workshop on how to design a great website. If you're in search engine optimization, run a seminar, a webinar on how to do great SEO. So if I was a resume writer, that is exactly what I would do, is I would offer a free seminars on how to write resumes. I would speak to local colleges. I would run free seminars there on how to run resumes. I would create a blog, because you're a writer. I would create a blog on how to write better resumes. That's what I would do. I would create videos on how to write better resumes, put on YouTube, because then you're positioning yourself as an expert. You've got to understand, and you've said it in your message here, is that there's so many other writers. So the only way you can differentiate yourself from so many other resume writers is by sharing your expertise. Because I know what happens is, when I say to people, share your expertise, they always assume, well, then somebody doesn't need me. That is not true. People still need you. Doesn't matter. I can go to webinars on how to create social media content, but I still use somebody to do it for me. So Karen, if I was you, that's what I would do. Okay. If I was in the resume writing business. And again, that's a very, very good example of a business that definitely I would use the strategy that I'm using now. Run seminars, run webinars, run workshops, speak to the local library and say, you know what, I want to run a free workshop on how to create a resume, and then do that. And I promise you, people are going to come to you after you've run this seminar. They're going to come to you and say to you, can I get your business card, please? They're going to say, great presentation. I really enjoyed it, but can I get your business card? Then they're going to message you and say, you know what, I was at your seminar the other day on resume writing, and you know what, it's really interesting, but could you do it for me? And how much do you charge? And this is what happened. And I would do exactly the same thing in my business, actually. If I was moving to a new city or a new area, that's exactly what I would do. I would go to a local library, I'd go to the local banks, I'd go to all potential customers for me and say, let me run a free seminar for you. Actually, that's how I usually start in new countries. So when I work in a new country, what I'll do, the first workshop, I'll offer to do for free. First workshop, just so that they can get to know me, get to know my style and things like that. And I promise you, it happens all the time. I mean, I gave you the example earlier on. I did that workshop in Portugal, and somebody messaged me that wants me to work with me on her strategy for a business. That was not my intention. That was not what I went to do the workshop for, but this is what happens every time. Another example now, somebody just contacted me about running a financial planning workshop, same type of thing. I ran a workshop for them. Now they're looking for other content and they come back to me. How do I market my catering business? There are so many catering businesses out there, and I'm versatile because I don't only specialize in Caribbean food, I also do vegan. So if I was running a catering a business, I would run workshops on how to cook the best Caribbean food. That's what I would do regularly. I would contact potential customers, for example, people that do flowers for events. I would contact all those businesses that work around and say, listen, I'm going to do something for your clients. I'll run a free workshop, or if they pay $10 each, and I will teach them how to make Caribbean food, and then have a session teaching people how to make Caribbean food. And I promise you, when their wedding comes up or their Christmas party comes up, whatever it is, that's what they were doing. So there you go. Yes, somebody with a plumbing business. Plumbers, I think, if I was in the plumbing business, I would just walk around actually because I mean, there's such a big demand for plumbing businesses. I would just walk around my area and just put notes on people's windows, doors, and say, listen, I'm a plumber in the area. I'm working in the area. If you've got any problems, come and I can help you with that. Or if you want to become more high profile, for example, run seminars on how to, for example, unblock drains, run seminars on how to save water, run seminars on things like that, things that are your expertise that people like I do not know. And the truth is that every single time you run an event, like at your local library, run a workshop on 10 things you should know before you employ a plumber. So that's an example. You go to your local library, say, listen, I want to run a workshop on 10 things you should ask your plumber, or 10 things you should know before getting a plumber in, or 10 things you should, or 5 things you should know so you don't get ripped off by your plumber. That's a workshop I'd run at my local library, and I promise you, you're going to get so much business, you're not going to be able to cope with it. All right, so very helpful. I'm a certified court interpreter for Indian subcontinent languages. How do I contract with government agencies? All right, so government agencies is a challenge on its own, but they are opportunities for you. The first thing I would do if I was an interpreter for Indian subcontinent languages is I would create a very good profile on LinkedIn. That's the first thing I do. Then I would try and identify, what government agencies do I want to connect with? Okay, so that's the first thing I would do. Then I would go onto LinkedIn and find people that are part of those government agencies. And then I would create content and share it on LinkedIn. That's probably what I would do. But one of the things you got to understand is whenever it comes to government agencies, there's a massive opportunity for you to bid on different projects. So I don't know what city you're in, but usually they put these things out for tender or out for bids, and you need to go onto these contacts, and it's not easy. I know, I work with governments. It's not easy, but it's doable, and usually LinkedIn is your best thing. Once you start building relationships with people on LinkedIn, there must be groups on LinkedIn, and you start building relationships. Jackie says, I work for an organization, but I want to branch out on my own to do private practice counseling and psychotherapy sessions. Okay, so when it comes to counseling and psychotherapy, what you're going to just be very careful of is the industry sometimes have certain rules and regulations that you can't do. But if I was in that business, I would definitely, what I would do is I'd do a Google search and find the most interesting topics for psychotherapy, and then come up with topics, come up with seminars on how to, I don't know, I can't even think of an example. But when it comes to psychotherapy, certain things that are generic that you can discuss. Because if I went to here's a really, really important thing. Most people don't know that they need a psychotherapist. Most people don't know that they need a counselor. It's only when somebody's got one and says to them, you know what, I've got this counselor and it really helps me, that people realize. So I think one of the challenges or one of the problems with industries like that is that people are undereducated. I mean, I can't go to my local library and say, attend a seminar on 10 things you should know before you get a psychotherapist. But maybe that's something that you could run a workshop at your local library on 10 things you should know about what psychotherapists can do for you, or 10 questions you should ask your psychotherapist. And what happens is when you run events like this, you're not giving people advice, but you giving them some tips on how to choose psychotherapists. Again, but just check with your association to see what's good. So great questions. I really like these questions. Thank you very much. So the other thing that I think really works, and I've got one very, very good example. I know this business owner that's always in the media, but I know what happened with him. He realized early on that once you're in the media regularly, everybody wants to speak to you. And this guy's like that. I walk with him in the morning when I'm in Portugal, and just about every week I see him somewhere. He's written an article, he's been interviewed on a blog post, whatever it is. And the other day I was asking him, I said, how do you get into the media so often? He says, firstly, it's part of my strategy. I said, I know that. And he said, secondly, I've got an assistant that does it for him. And I want you to understand that when you see somebody, and we discussed this on Tuesday, but when you see somebody in the media regularly, especially if they're a small business owner, this is strategic. This is not like just happens by, by luck. Oh, there is a bit of luck sometimes. So I want you to understand this, you can be strategic about this. You, for example, if you're a business in a town, the type of things you want to do is you want to get a publicist for you. And they're not expensive, just so you know. Actually, there are organizations, I know they message me all the time, which I ignore, that say that we only pay on results. So if we get you into the media, then you pay. The part I never understand, which I haven't asked, is how much do you pay? But I want you to understand there's an opportunity. I know when I first started Biz Launch 20 years ago, I was regularly on TV. I was regularly on radio. I was regularly on the newspaper, but I had somebody working, doing that, trying to get me into the media. And so you've got to understand this. This could be part of your strategy. And it doesn't matter what your business is. If you're a psychotherapist, get onto podcasts. If you can write, get onto blogs. If you've got an opinion, get onto TV. And you'll be shocked at how easy it is to get onto TV. I know a lot of the people that I mentor, I will say to them, try and get onto TV. And they say, really? Can I get on TV? And I say, yes, if you want to, but you've got to be strategic about it. You've got to identify TV stations, identify the producers, then you've got to send them a proposal or send them an idea, or whatever it is, and you can get it. And it's not difficult to do, but it takes effort. It takes work and it takes strategy, which I showed you the other day on Tuesday. So you've got to understand that. The other thing, which I think is very, very smart, is enter award competitions. So if you ever see a small business person of the year, or if you've got a Chamber of Commerce, a business person of the year, or whatever it is, always enter those things. And don't, if you win, don't get a big head. They have to choose somebody. But the point is that I think it is a great opportunity to improve your profile. So I know many business owners that have got these awards, top 20 people of the year, or top 40, or top 50, or whatever it is. As long as it doesn't go to your head, is always an important thing. But it's very, very good for your business. Ayabi says, I'm a registered nurse planning to open my home care agency next year. Should I wait until I start to operate to start requesting local healthcare services to come in to offer free workshops? No, I would start offering free workshops now. I wouldn't wait. You don't want to be waiting. You've got to contact these places and say, listen, I run free workshops on diabetes management. I run free workshops on blood pressure management. I run free workshops on how to improve your diet. Start doing it now. You don't want to wait till your business is open. You want to start doing it now. Actually, what you want to do is you want to build a community around you. Actually, if you start now, before you open the business, it's even better, because then people don't think, she's got, or he's got an ulterior motive, and that's why they're running these workshops, okay? You're just sharing your expertise. And then what you do is then you create a Facebook group, and then you say to people, listen, if you want to join our Facebook group, join our Facebook group, because then we'll tell you each time we're running a free seminar. And then you start building this community around you before you launch your business. That's what I would do. So I would start running free events now. Next month. What month are we in? We're in February. In March, I would start running free events, okay? And you want to build a community around you is what you should be doing. All right, let's see if I can help you with a couple of other things. All right, so enter award competitions, Entrepreneur of the Year, Business Person of the Year, Immigrant Business Person of the Year. There's just so many of these little things. And if there's no competition, start one yourself. No, not really. The other thing you want to do is you want to create video. I find, especially when things are quiet, there's such a big opportunity to create content and just to share your knowledge and share your experience. I realize as I'm getting older, I'm a little bit lazy to get in front of a camera and record, but really it's so easy. Just think of it. Most of us, especially me, has the equipment. I can create 5-minute videos, 2-minute videos, 1-minute video, and share it on the internet. And keep doing it. Just keep doing it over and over and over again. I think the key here is consistency. And I want you to understand this. Actually, I saw a nice, an interesting example yesterday. I can't remember the guy's name now, but he's a very well-known leadership presenter. And I'm not going to remember his name, which is, anyway, it doesn't matter. But he was saying, for example, people say that they do something and it doesn't work. Well, it's like anything. If you go to the gym, and you go for 9 hours the first day and never go again, you're not going to look much better, just so you know. But if you go a half an hour every day, or every 2 days go for an hour, over 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or a year, you're going to notice the difference. And I want you to understand that. And creating content has the same impact. If you create one video and create a really brilliant video and share it once, you don't get a return on investment. But if you create videos regularly and consistently, eventually they start paying off. And I want you to understand that. The problem is that we want quick results. We'll start blogging, we write 1 or 2 blog posts, and we want results. We'll start creating videos, we'll write 1 or 2 videos, and we want results. We'll start running seminars, free workshops. We'll run 1 or 2, we won't get many people showing up, we'll get despondent and we'll give up. That's not how business works. It's got to be doing it over and over again. I often say to people, the first seminar I ever ran, I had 2 people show up, 2 people. I should have given up. I didn't give up. And this is 25 years later, and I'm still in the same business. But imagine if I wanted quick results. The other big opportunity is to volunteer. Again, even when you volunteer, you want to be strategic. You don't want to, you can do whatever you want, but you don't want to, if you're a business owner and you want to grow your profile, you want to volunteer for committees or boards where there's influential people on the board. Otherwise, I don't see the point. If you're doing it just because you want to be a nice person, well, that's wonderful. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. If you decided you're going to allocate time to volunteer, I think all of us should be doing this as business owners. But we can also be strategic. If you know who's on the board, and if it's somebody that's influential, you know what, that would move me in that direction. The problem I find sometimes with boards is I get bored very quickly. Go to a couple of meetings, and then they just have meetings for the sake of meetings, and I get bored. So I'm not on any committees or any boards, because usually it's an absolute waste of my time. But again, other people, they want to do that and they enjoy doing it and they're good at it. You've got to be doing it. The other big opportunity is to tell your business story. I want you to understand, people, your customers, and generally people out there want to hear your story. So I encourage you, whenever you get the opportunity, at your local small business center, at your local chamber of commerce, at your local conference, is tell your story. Tell your business journey and some of the challenges you faced along the way. I promise you, is by showing people some of the challenges you've been through, by telling people your story, it's going to inspire people and it's going to build a community around you. And I've tried to do that for 25 years, is whenever I run my seminars, I try and tell a story, usually about other business owners nowadays, not so much about myself. But the point is that I know that when I tell a story about myself or somebody else that has started a business and struggled, it'll always inspire 1 or 2 people. It'll always happen. somebody will come up to me afterwards and say to me, that story you told about that business owner really inspired me. And for me, that's really, really important that you and I go and speak at schools, we go and speak at colleges, we go and speak at universities. Why? Because we're going to inspire people. And if we inspire people, it's good for everybody in our community. And I see this, where there's lots of opportunities in different communities, but people don't have somebody to look up to say, you know what, if she can do it, so can I. And this is sometimes one of the things that business owners can do that improves their profile. It's very, very good for them, and it's good for their community. And here's the final thing, and I think one of the most important things is I've learned as a business owner is that if we are nice and we help as many people as possible, there's no doubt in my mind that you will be successful. But you also got to be very, very careful. When you help people, you help it with no expectations. Because if you're expecting people to come back and pat you on the back, you're going to be let down many, many times. But the lesson I've learned, you can be very, very successful at business and be a nice person. So you don't have to be tough. You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be all of those things. But you need to be firm. You don't want people to take advantage of you. I was speaking to a business owner yesterday, and she was saying to me, I really like, being your mentee. And she said, because you're straightforward and honest, and sometimes being firm and friendly is good. You don't want to be a pushover, because if you allow people to take advantage of you, they will. I'm only able to select text and not copy using multiple methods. I would like to get a copy of this webinar. Okay. Anyway, so if you want to copy the slides that I've got, I can send them through to Chris and he'll send them to you. Let me just say, finally, summarize quickly. Here's the thing I want you to understand as business owners. I think improving your business profile is good for your business, and it'll increase your profitability over time. So as a business owner, I would encourage you to take some of these steps. So what I taught you on Tuesday about getting PR, and what I taught you today about improving your profile, some of you are going to do it. And you know what? It works. I only teach stuff on my webinars that I know it works, and I've seen people doing it. Just remember, next week, Tuesday, we've got another webinar coming up, and next week, Thursday, Marco will be there on Tuesday. He's much smarter than me. Enjoy next week's webinars. Have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining me this afternoon.